So this week is all about foundations throughout the challenge. We're really learning and focusing on how to build things from the ground up and do things with like the ultimate intention, attention, and focus. And remind ourselves it's not always about doing the most, or we have to do the biggest and the craziest things to progress ourselves into strength. It's in these like quiet, tiny details and learning how to do them in these accessible places. So last year, this was a workshop on all the postures that are in a Sun A. And there's down dog, high plank, up dog. No, wait, whoa, I missed one. Chaturanga, up dog, back to down dog. So it is just 4 movements that we're going to be working through in these 2 hours. And I'm going to leave it to Tristan. He's an insane physiotherapist, has like an amazing knowledge of the body. He's actually who's helping to bring me back to life. So send him all the vibes because he has to deal with me.
You're great. You're such a good patient.
And yeah, so I will leave it to Tristan.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to be here with you. And
I'm stoked to be here. And like in our hometown of Tulum, Mexico.
I know.
Which is amazing.
Look at this.
So, yeah, I'm Tristan Gatto. I've been a physiotherapist and yoga teacher for 12 years now, which is so wild to think about. I'm like, 12 years, where did that go? I co-taught with Sadie Nardini. I am a top-selling author on dailyohm.com, so I combine a lot of physio and yoga together. For more prehab, so I created Yoga Prehab, so all my courses are for preventing stuff that comes up as we start to age, because I'm about to turn 40 in June, and so I'm starting to feel those changes in my body as well. So I'm like, okay, let me help you out if you're in your 30s of like what's gonna come up later on as you hit that 35 and beyond mark. And a lot of my clients are 50 and up, so I help them to get back, anti-age their movement, anti-age their bodies through diet, exercise, stretching, and also the big thing is mindset. So as you go through this practice today and you start to feel through your body, think about foundations of what have you really been creating in your subconscious in regards to your practice. If you're newer to the practice or if you've been in the practice for a while, what are some subconscious beliefs that you have about the practice or your strength or your body, like things that you say about your body? We're really talking about foundations. So where do we build from? And a lot of us build from where we came from growing up. And so for a lot of us that are doing that inner work, because yoga is not just on the mat, it's also off the mat into the world. It's those foundations of what we were given from maybe parents, friends, family members, and now as we walk in our adult life, like what foundations we choose now. And through this practice and what Dee is teaching you of how you can break it down, deconstruct it, and then reconstruct it into the vision and the practice that you want it to be. So when you step off your mat into your life, that way you can apply those same things that are happening. So we're gonna go through Sun A today. I'm gonna teach you some really cool tricks that you can start to weave in with what Dee has told you and taught you as well to help you really access your deep core line. So we have a line of fascia that goes through the inner soles of the feet, so your arch, all the way up through your tibia.
That's a trigger word right now.
I know. in through the inner thigh muscles, up through the psoas, into your diaphragm, and it comes all the way out through your tongue. This is all one piece that's connected. Now, what this piece does is it gives your body lift and rise away from the floor. So throwing back to Wicked right now, defying gravity. So what we want in this practice is to defy gravity, of always getting this length, this lift, and this floating, especially if you're going to try to fly into arm balances, if you're going to try to get into handstands and get away from the floor, we need to defy gravity because gravity is always crushing us and shrinking us. So we tend to default when we're in a power down mode. Our bodies are always wanting to go to the least amount of energy exerted. So you'll go in one of two ways when you are in a relaxed posture. You're either going to do duck butt and throw the head forward. So chin juts forward, pulls on TMJ. So if you got TMJ issues, we might want to look at a little bit of posture correction. Or this is me personally. It's my whole family's like this too. It's pelvis under, shoulders rounded, head coming forward when we're just relaxed. So go ahead and stand up and check out your posture. Like, don't think about it. I just want you to just, like just the most relaxed, lazy posture and see where you feel the compression and where you feel your body sinking. Are you jutting forward and feeling that duck butt in the back, or are you more hips tucked under, shoulders rounded forward? And there's nothing wrong with this, by the way, too, because we can't be like this all the time. Fully expressed is not good either for the body, neither is fully unexpressed. So we want to find that medium in between. But just keep in mind where your natural posture resides, because as you build your own practice in this with your alignment, it's going to change how you start to create the adjustment in the pelvis and also the adjustment in the rib cage and the shoulders. And that's how you can remap it through the Sun A posture. So as you're standing now, I want you to close your eyes. And this is how you're going to identify the deep core line. So go into that power down mode. Mode. It's a little early for me. I haven't had enough caffeine, but we'll get there.
We'll get you more coffee.
All right. So just shake it out. Let it go. And I want you just to feel the weight of gravity pushing down on the top of your crown, pushing down on your shoulders, pushing down on the hips, the knees, and all the way down to the feet. Now what you're going to do is just start to lift the toes. Lift your toes as high as you can, keeping the balls of the feet on the ground. And notice how your body, as the arches start to lift, your body naturally shifts into the posture. Do you start to feel the pelvic floor kicking on, lower abdominals kicking in, that sweeping up of the spine? Now start to carry that energy from the genitals, like front and back, all the way up, like it's sweeping up the front of the spine, the back of the spine, and that energy just keeps continuing up, 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 up through the top of the crown. And then keeping that space, just lay your toes down. Now do you feel the connection of your toes, the balls of the feet, the edges of the feet, and the heel? Now power down, release it. Blah, feels like shit, right? Yeah, where you feel dead. We tend to do that a lot in our practice. I'm guilty of it too, because I want to be a lazy bee in the practice sometimes. So I'm like, I don't really want to do this. I'm like, activate your deep core line, Tristan. Come on. So now let's see if you can activate this without lifting up your toes. So I want you to take your awareness down into the arches of your feet and think about suctioning them up. So it's as if you're pulling and drawing the energy up through the legs, up through the pelvic floor, sweep it up through the psoas, sweep it up through the diaphragm without sucking back and in. It's a sweep up. Bring it up through the shoulders, the neck, all the way up through the tops of the ears to the tops of the crown, and then lay your hands on your side, palms facing forward. Mountain pose. This is what you want to feel when you're in that mountain position. If you're beginning that Sun A pose, you're already tuned in and turned on because you're activating that deep core line. Now, if you forget how to activate deep core line, all you have to do is lift your toes. That's it. Lift your toes, keep the space, and then settle them down. Cool? Everybody got that? And now hold that for a minute and see how much energy you're exerting. You feel it low back, you feel it up through the middle back, you're going to feel it up through the abdominals. And just hold that for a moment. Try not to drop the feet. Your body's going to try to go power down, power down, power down. Don't let it. Keep the space. If there's any discomfort in the low back, you can kind of shift around and snake the back a little bit and get a little more freedom, a little more space, because your body's trying to stabilize, and then reset. Try not to lock the knees out. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, and then just relax it out. Shake it out. Walk it around a little bit. So again, we're creating space. You know, we've got two parts of our body that hit the ground when we're, besides our butt, but in our front body. But really, when we're doing the practice, we have our hands and we have our feet. So we've got the deep core line that attaches into the feet, but we also have a deep core line of our hands as well. And the number one thing I see with injuries with yoga is overstretching labral tears, overstretched ligaments in the knees, and then also wrist injuries. And that's a really big one. So because we're getting so much compression, but we need all of the muscles, like Dee coaches you, I watched your lovely workshop the other night, of where the placement, because we have torsion of the bones, we have torsion of, so it means like the bones aren't perfectly straight. There's ridges, and everybody's a little bit different in their anatomy, but we're built like this. We're built very circular. So with our practice, we don't want to be just fully expressed, locked out, like shove everything into the end range of the joint. We need some play. We need some joint play and some space in the joints, but we need all of the muscles to turn on in the arm. So what I'm going to have you do now is come down to the mat, come down to your knees. We're going to talk a little bit about physics as well too, because we know Dee is like badass, like handstand. Maybe not right now. You probably still could, to be honest. Let's be honest.
I'm
but
not going to try though.
no, we're not.
We're not doing that.
No. I don't encourage it. Please don't. If you're injured in any way, please be careful with your body. But we know that with physics, we have ground reaction force. So that means we have to apply a force down into the ground in order to get off the ground. So I'm going to show you something really interesting. So I want you to fully express your hands. So all 5 fingers, spread them out as wide as you can, down into the ground, and push and lock out your joints. Now try to push yourself off the ground. Try to push away. Can you do it? You can't do it. You can't do it, can you?
One more time.
Ready? So that's because we don't have ground reaction force. We have to bend the joints. We have to press into the ground in order to get the force up. So really what the earth does is we apply the force down into the core of the planet, technically, and it bounces us back up. So it's the same thing. Go ahead and stand up. I know we're doing a lot of up and down. All right, lock out your knees.
We have a question when you're ready.
Sure, try to jump. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. So that's why we need a little bit of a bend into the practice. So when you're in that down dog, if you're coming forward into plank, we need to have those bends because we're locking everything out in traditional practice, which you don't do, but I'm talking about speaking towards traditional practice. It's very linear and it's very frontal, but we actually need to use the laws of physics in order to carry our bodies forward and also to turn on all those muscles, the deep core line, and get us through the practice safely, but we're also building the strength from the feet all the way up to the crown as we practice each and every pose.
Hold on, this is actually really good for the question. So Deja's asking, hi Tristan, I have a question about alignment. It's very natural for me to roll onto the sides of my feet when standing. What does that mean about alignment for me? I just keep practicing the grounding and suction action? So that's actually really good to talk about with the spiral. And so she's saying she's supinating instead of pressing down.
Yeah, so that can also be a postural thing too. So a lot of people are built this way where the arches are super, super high and they walk on the outsides of the feet, which can cause the internal rotation of the knees. Do you have any knee problems at all?
Do you have any knee problems, Deja?
Or do you ever notice it in your knees or your hips, like any just crankiness?
She does have very high arches.
Uh-huh. So what I like to do with, but my knees are always locked.
Hypermobility.
Yeah. So you get a shove back motion. So I'll demonstrate this, like how important our feet are. So if you look at me, we're gonna turn around and I'm gonna show you the backs of my heels, because I'm flat-footed. So if I really just don't focus on it, you can see how my feet dip inwards, but look at my Achilles. My Achilles bow inward like this, especially more towards the left than the right. So now if I start to turn on deep core line, I can correct, and I have to reshift because this is my powered down motion. As it's rolling inward, my tibias are rolling outward and my thighs are rolling inward.
So the easiest thing for her to do to reset is to just lift the toes.
Lift the toes? No, actually for high arches, you want to release the tissues a little bit. So rolling a ball underneath your foot before you practice will help to relax the tissues. So what happens too with your foot, when you're on hard ground, your foot begins to relax. So when we're on a more solid space, and especially depending on your shoes as well too, if you have really soft shoes, your foot's gonna stiffen up. So when we're on soft ground, the foot stiffens. When we're on hard ground, the muscles and the joints and the bones start to relax because we need to cushion as we start to walk, that ground reaction force, because there has to be a push and then a propulsion. So just as we walk, we're always in a single leg balance, but we have to press into the ground, and we have a little bit of, we're getting to mechanics here, but the foot dips inward and outward. So we actually walk like this. So we heel strike, mid stance, it comes inward, and then we connect with the outer edge of the foot. So there's like, it's a little bit of a like wave that happens as we start to walk, you know, because we don't walk stiff like this. Because that just wouldn't, I mean, that'd be really awkward. I'd be like, I mean, it depends on how many drinks you've had.
I mean, true. Anyway.
I don't drink, but you know.
We hope that answered.
Anyway, so does that help? So what I want you to try doing, if you're somebody that has higher arches, take a ball, roll out your foot, you know, prehab before your practice. And I know we're like, I just want to get into the practice and feel better, but there is some maintenance that we need to do with the body before we start the practice. All right, so let's come back down to the ground. Let's come back to the hands. Now, with practice, we don't want fully expressed and we don't want underexpressed, like lazy fingers. Mm-hmm. So find the medium in between, all right, where you can have space. Now, for any of you that might have played like baseball, softball, you know when you go to catch, you have to keep a little cupping to the hand, right? You're not like, here, I'm gonna catch it like this with a flat palm. Like, no, it's gonna sting and it's gonna hurt your hand. So I want you to think about like catcher hands, all right? So from here, melt your fingers into the ground, but I want you to think of tenting the center of the palm here, all right? Sitting back, bend your elbows, push off the ground. And when you do that, do you feel when you tent your hands and you really drive the fingers into the ground that you feel your whole arm turn on? All the way up, that's the deep core line of the arm. So now, fully express, press the palms flat and lock out the elbows. Do you feel how your arms don't turn on as much? You're all into wrist joint, especially if we're going into, now think about going shoulders beyond. This is the position you need to be in to get into handstand press-ups. It doesn't feel very good. Back off a little bit, tent the hands, push down. Now come forward. Do you have more space and strength? Do you feel your hands actually doing their job? So that way when you're, same thing, if you're going into down dog, what are we doing here? We're pressing back, sorry. So we're pressing up, pressing up, pressing up. So why press and lock and then shove back? So as we get into the hips back and wide, booty back, and press, we've got so much more space. I can't believe how tight I am. Y'all are so limber, and I'm like, okay, maybe I need to back off.
Girly, that's
I am
why.
a gym girly now. I was like, yoga, what? I'm like, oh, I have to stretch now. So funny. Okay, let's do that again with the feet as well. So go ahead and stand back up. So this is just mechanic stuff, and then I'm going to walk you through the rest of the practice. So from here, lift up the toes, push down into the ground, bend your knees. Now lay the toes down, draw the energy up, 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 up. So now you've already got traction in the spine. So now the spine is protected, glutes are engaged, and now you can extend back if you'd like. As we go into Sun A for these ones, just feel that initial back bend and notice where you feel it. It's not as crunchy in the low lumbar as gravity's crunching us and pushing us down. We're actually supported both in front and back of the spine and being able to open up through the chest and really spread here and feel that brightness in the collarbones and in the upper chest. You can come out of this now, slowly. Perfect. So we're drawing energy down from the ground, helping us lift, 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 get more length, get more traction through each vertebrae, support the low lumbar and protect it, and then dissolve back. And the thing is as we start to age, as we start to get older, for my ladies, if you're gonna have babies, your low back takes a huge brunt of this, not to mention the changes in the pelvic floor and in your abdominal tissues, especially diastasis recti, which is the separation of the abdominals. when you're coming back into your practice, there is that fear of like, oh my God, my stomach's going to rip open, my guts are going to spill out. It's a little violent to think about, but we want to keep that same support, that wrapping around, getting the transverse abdominals in, getting the obliques to come in. So every time you're coming into this mountain pose, you're thinking about sweeping up the front, sweeping up the back, and keeping that length so you can float. So we want to float, we don't want to sink. Exactly.
Come to rise, not to
All right.
sink.
So now let's take that all the way through. Here's the thing. When we look at biomechanics, your lever arm, as your arms are up this way and tipping back, this is going to put way more load on your tissues as opposed to having the hands here. So if you're somebody that has a crunchy, like pesky lower spine, I'm one of those. Maybe you take it here and that's enough, and then you can sink back once you feel good and you're solid and bring the hands up instead of from this long arm arc back where these tissues have to go. Does that make sense? So what we're going to do is take it from the ground. So set up, pull the toes up, check in deep core line. All right? Now I want you to start with your hands and palms down, fingertips down to the ground. Take a deep breath in, bend your knees. As you exhale, push through the ground. Draw the energy up through your body. Use your hands. Flip the fingertips up. Inhale, the arms overhead. And then arch the upper chest. Okay, so that's my way of coming into this first version, or first part of Sun A, and bring it all the way down. Now let's just take standard traditional and notice what you feel there. So hands down, feet together, come in and up, inhale, and notice what you feel there. Do you feel more compression, more of the gravity pushing you down, really having the abs to struggle because the low back is like, oh my God, it's too much, it's too much. Same thing. So to protect the spine, to really get this lift and rise, that traction in the spine first, push down. So my tip is push down to get up, push down to get up, push down to get up. So here we go. Let's take that again. Fingertips down, inhale. Exhale, draw the energy up. Inhale the arms overhead and slightly back bend here. Really feel that spaciousness. Now separate the palms, wiggle the fingers, superstar. And then what you can do is I like to come down to my upper glutes, roll the shoulder back, roll the left shoulder back, and then if you want a deeper back bend and chest opening, you can take it from here because you're already set up for success. You're already set. Lower body's already turned on. Deep core line is protecting you. To come out of this, bend your knees, inhale. And exhale, you can extend the legs and dissolve.
Dissolve.
Dissolve, dissolve, dissolve. How did that feel? Check in with everybody. How did that feel?
Says, wow, mind blown.
Crazy, right? Who would have known? Physics.
And Sakina saying, my low back feels crunchy, but only on the left side. So that's probably just because she might be tight through hips, psoas, or some kind
And crunchy could be QL.
Yeah,
QL,
crunchy,
low QL.
definitely QL.
Don't worry, my left side is crunchy and bitchy every day. So I feel you, sister. I'm with you.
Lena's asking, when you bend back, do you knit your upper ribs in or do you let them flare a bit? That's a good question.
So
It's like
I don't knit them in because I want an upper chest release.
fully though, or is there a
So-
little bit?
It's slight. So there's a different
80%.
way. When we're knitting, we're thinking about drawing the ribs down. So we're bringing them in together. So that would be here, and then also zipping and lifting up. So zip and wrap. This is something I always teach my students. Zip, like you're putting on a tight pair of pants and you don't want to get anything stuck, and then wrap it around. Like you're putting on, a tight jacket. Like you're like, ugh, and buttoning it up. So this will always be a power pose, especially when you're in the plank pose. If you're coming into boat pose, is it bow or boat? Boat. Boat. Because the other one's bow.
Yeah, that's bow. Open is bow.
It's all coming back. All right. So knitting the ribs. What I'm more concerned about typically is this support from here to here. So not only lumbar, but where that T12, where your thoracic spine meets your lumbar spine, that is typically an area that people start to have bulging, start to have herniations. So as we're doing all of these practices where we're down here and we're pushing up and then we start to get tired or we just don't feel like it, or maybe it's just a conditioning error, is that now I'm into my T12 L1 region and I'm just blowing out my discs forward, putting pressure on the back of the disc and pushing all that pasty-like tissue. It's like substance, like the consistency of toothpaste inside your discs. It's all pushing into the inner walls and starting to create more stretching, which we don't want to do. We want lengthening so that the discs can rehydrate and we've got protection. So
May,
as opposed
listening?
to
Good.
so as you're here, we want actually more space, and the opening is in the chest. So the ribs have to flare here, right? They have to open up because the lungs need space to expand down into the diaphragm.
However, she's not letting them flare completely.
No, because
No.
there's still
Still
engagement. It's
activity.
not. We're not talking about like this would be a full flare. That's just all the way open, dumped, and expressed. So there's a bit of a lift. It's kind of like in between. It's negotiating how much space to open up and how much space to reserve. Does that make sense? Like that balance between yin and yang, not fully expressed and not fully like
Baby
turned off.
bear. That's been the theme all week.
Baby bear.
Baby bear. Not too much, not
Okay.
too little.
Is
Just
this
right.
is this tracking for everybody?
Yes.
Making a lot of sense?
Also, we have a question from Magali. She says, "Do I stop if it hurts, or feel anything wrong in my back?" Yes, like you don't push through pain.
Correct. So depends. Like there can be stretch discomfort, there can be compression discomfort, but if you're feeling sharp, shooting pain, anything that feels burny, and just anything that's basically, can I cuss?
Yeah.
And
This is my
anything,
channel.
yeah, sorry. Anything that's a fuck no, like if you're like in this and you're like fuck no, because some days it is a fuck no. Even though I can do a scorpion most days, I don't do it every day because some days I get into it and my body is like, fuck no, sit your ass down. And I'm like, cool, no scorpion today, like nothing for me. Like I guess,
Access denied.
I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna over here and twist, and because my hips are irritated. So. No, the
don't
practice
push
is not, again, when I talked about the beginning of this practice of what foundations are you building? Are you building a foundation of force where you're always going to force yourself? And where else are you doing that to yourself in your life? Like there's a time to push and there's a time to say, okay, I got to back off a little bit. And there's nothing wrong with backing off. You're not wrong. You're not lazy. It doesn't mean anything about you. If anything, I think you're smarter because you know where your limits sit and that your limits shift every day and that we're not the same every day. And thank God for that, because I'm glad I'm not like back in my 20s. Like where I'm at now at almost 40, I'm like, cool, wow.
I understand.
Like.
Kinda.
So, and the body's going to shift. Like as you get into your, if you're in your 20s, as you get into your early 30s, after you have children, after you start getting into 35 to 40, when women start going into perimenopause and menopause, it's embracing every single year, embracing the change in the practice, embracing the change in the muscles. And you know what? If you get a little extra on you, it's totally fine because it's normal. Like at least your body is healthy and doing what it needs to do. And anything can be remapped, reconfigured, deconstructed, reconstructed, and you can create a new foundation at any time. That's the beauty of this practice. So we good with questions?
We're good.
I'm going to move on. All right. So
DFD.
let's come back up into standing. Let's take that again so that we remember. Lift up the toes. Hands can come here. If you don't want to, I actually do them like this. I draw them up, through, and out, because we actually have inner rotation, external rotation, and the reason that is, because watch when we do this. You see how those upper traps kick on? automatically. Now we need space here, right? So what we can do here is when you draw internal rotation, external rotation, it sets the shoulder blades up for success and more space, this is the same position we use for down dog. So you're already turning on those muscles, you're already prepping them to go into the next few postures that we're gonna need, both for plank and for down dog. We're already turned on, so we're not over activating these muscles. And just like Dee says, when you start to sink down,